Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 825. I am Tom Kegley, your host. Today, we feature our conversation with Richmond Alake. During our conversation, we discussed AI, machine learning, and most importantly, why being a lifelong learner is important. Really important. Not enough? We also discuss what comes next now that AI chat has been done. Richmond's bio. Richmond Alake is an AI ML practitioner with an academic background in computer vision, robotics, and machine learning. He's worked in software development and machine learning since 2016. Richmond has also taught online AI, ML, data courses, and written over 200 articles with 1 million views. He is passionate about using technology to solve real-world problems. Links in the show notes to MongoDB and Richmond's LinkedIn. Are you ready to talk learning? It's time for the interview. Richmond Alake, welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Thank you for having me, Tom. I'm looking forward to a great conversation about the stuff we do at MongoDB in relation to AI, and looking forward to answering your interesting questions.
Well, and let's hope they're interesting. Sometimes they're pretty... No, I shouldn't say that. They should be. If we don't laugh, I judge 95% of my interviews that there's no laughter on as a failure. Let's actually start with, something pretty basic. What's the difference? How do you define the difference between machine learning and AI?
I guess we can start from the top. So if you want to understand the difference generally, we can start with AI. So artificial intelligence is, I guess now it's a buzzword, but it's such a buzzword, but we can think about it as a definition of any system that displays intelligence that is similar to human or surpasses human, right? So just to repeat that, you can define artificial intelligence as any computational system that displays intelligence that is similar or surpasses human intelligence. So it's not basically intelligence that's not human. Now, machine learning, it's a process by which we actually provide computational systems with the ability to learn from data. So it's an approach to essentially create the functionalities for computational systems to extract patterns and do cool stuff like classifications and predictions. And that in itself is a form of intelligence, and machine learning is a way to provide computational systems with some form of AI, some form of artificial intelligence.
So is machine learning sort of the precursor to getting something to be artificially intelligent?
Yeah. You can see it as the step that we take there. So there are other fields. There is reinforcement learning, which you will probably see more in the gaming side of things, right? Where you're creating intelligent entities that can play games. AlphaGo was built with reinforcement learning techniques. So there are various forms of actually, how would I say, embedding some form of intelligence within computational systems. Machine learning is one of the predominant ones.
You stated that, well, how would we know if an intelligence was actually more intelligent than us? How would we actually be able to know that?
Well, it's very simple, right? So I guess we could go to the basic. 100% a calculator is more intelligent than me at doing maths, right? So, but you wouldn't call a calculator AI. And at the moment, we can say that most AI that we see today, at least, are narrow AI, meaning they're very good at very specific tasks. So what we see currently happening is the emergence of some step 2 AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is you have a form of intelligence that could not only do one specific task that it's been trained for, it could do general tasks. So take for, I guess, GPT. GPT can answer questions with arithmetic or answer questions that has to do with geography or answer questions that has to do with classifications and whatnot. So that's more of a general intelligence type of system. But how can you determine if a system is intelligent? Well, we used to have, and I say used to, but we used to have something called a Turing test.
Turing test, yeah.
Exactly. And I say used to because the Turing test it doesn't really gauge as well. It's not a good test at the moment. And people are debating whether there needs to be another method of determining how intelligent a system is. And that's still in the research phases. But one thing this is a pattern. Anytime humans create something that pushes the bar of intelligence, right? That mimics our intelligence. What we tend to do is to say, that can't be it. That's not intelligence. There must be something further out that is intelligent.
Mhm.
We've not got there yet. So the bar is gonna keep getting pushed until we reach something that is very convincingly that really convince a lot of people that yes, this is something that it's on par with human intelligence.
If it was on par with human intelligence, there might be an argument that the only way we really know that it's on par or perhaps surpassed us is if we catch it lying to us about being intelligent. That would be very human.
That would be very human. That's very true. As in, humans have the things that I was reading this book called Hidden Potential. I forgot who the author name is, but the book is called Hidden Potential. And the author very early in the book mentions that the key difference between humans and machines, and this is going to be the key difference in the future, is character skills, the character. And I guess you can say the ability to lie is a human characteristics. And when we start to see this, not personality, but characteristics, the author does a better job at explaining this than I am. In the future, what will actually be very unique to human is the characteristics that each of us hold. So things like discipline, determination, those things might not be easily replicated within artificial computational entities.
Yeah, that would be, well, all of this stuff is difficult to conceive as to how one codes. Before we go deeper, how did you get to where you are now? Whether it's, until recently you were a machine learning architect and engineer, now you're a developer advocate for AI. How did you get there?
I'm a developer advocate at MongoDB focused on AI and machine learning. How did I get here? I would like to say it was very thought out. I had a calculated process. There was a map, but honestly, it was a mistake. We'll start with that. So in the UK, when you're in college, and college is the in between secondary school and university, you do it for 2 years. So when you go into college, in your first year, you have to select 4 topics. I went in the induction day with 3 topics, which was maths, chemistry, and physics. And the person signing me on into the college said, "Hey, you've got to choose 4. You can't start with just 3." And I said, "Choose for me," because I can't think of anything at the moment. Then he said, "How about computing?" And I said, "Hey, I stopped learning about computing when I was in year 9 in secondary school. So in secondary school, we go up to year 11. So I stopped learning computing in year 9 as an academic study." And I just said, "Yeah, sure, put that on." And the only reason he recommended that subject, Tom, was because he was the computing teacher. So my entire path in tech is totally be on the whim of someone's decision for me. Needless to say, but every step after that has been, I guess, more purposeful, where I'm able to seize opportunity. So I studied software engineering at my undergrad, and I became a web developer, worked for about 3 years as a full stack web developer. And I got bored, honestly. I reached a point in my career where I asked myself, is this it? So I thought to myself, what's the next thing? And AI was still, if you're within the web space, you would definitely have been dabbling with some AI or some form of AI, and I decided to pay attention to it. And I thought AI is going to be very scary. So I bought this huge my first approach to learning machine learning was I bought this massive book. And for those who are listening, I'm demonstrating a massive gap between my two hands. The book was massive. It was called Probabilistic Method to something, and I can't remember. It was a massive book. And that scared me to university. So I went to go and I took a master's in computer vision, machine learning, and space robotics because I got scared. I thought, wow, this is a difficult topic. I understand nothing in this book. I need to go to university to learn about this. But nowadays, you watch a YouTube video and apparently you're an AI expert.
I think people do try to pass themselves off as AI experts after watching a couple of YouTube videos. That's in its own right a tad scary. If you were starting your career over today, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Start talking about the things you're learning earlier. The reason why I'm at MongoDB was because the people at MongoDB saw some of the articles I was writing online. So while I was learning, while I was still working as a full-time employee, I was writing a lot of content about computer vision, machine learning, and AI in general. And they came across this, some were followers, and they liked what I put out. And then eventually they reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to do this thing you do over there in MongoDB? And I would have said yes to any role in MongoDB, mostly because I'm a massive fan of the technology.
Yeah.
MongoDB is a database company, and now it's matured into a developer data platform. But my introduction to MongoDB happened at university when I was working on my university projects, maybe about 12 years ago. And I fell in love with the technology because it unified the application landscape for me. MongoDB is a database where data is stored using something called a JSON schema, right? This is the document model. And this is a data model that we use as web developers. And when I came across MongoDB, it connected the whole full stack for me. I was able to use the same language, the same thinking across all layers of the application stack. So I fell in love with the technology so much so, I bought some MongoDB stocks when they IPO'd. But I was a university student at the time, so I only bought about £100 worth, which is nothing. But that's how much I really liked the technology.
Yeah, that is a statement, especially for a university student.
Yes, yeah, very much so. So, so eventually, I guess 5 or so years later, I got reached out by MongoDB to come and help and talk about how MongoDB fits within the form factor of AI we see today. So that's what I do. I talked to developers about how MongoDB can help them build scalable, performant AI application. And I take that learnings and I also talk to customers about how they can do this as well. And yeah, that's how I got here.
So how do you stay current? I mean, you're at the cutting edge right now, and we'll come back to that in a couple of seconds. But being that you're at the cutting edge, how do you stay at the cutting edge, or do you not?
Well, the first mistake I guess anyone could make in the AI field is think you're at the cutting edge because the space moves so quickly. What was cutting edge today is not going to be cutting edge in a few weeks' time. You just GPT-4 Omni Mini just came out yesterday, right? So that's one of the cheapest models from OpenAI, and it's very performant. But this space moves so quickly. 2 years ago, not a lot of people were talking about generative AI, right? So there was once upon a time, everyone was looking at convolutional neural network, or everyone was talking about big data. Everyone was talking about Internet of Things. This space moves so quickly. And in some fields, digital transformation is still a a key word for some industries. So how do I stay cutting edge? I basically accept the fact that I am a lifelong learner. So
Mm.
what that means is every single thing that I do in my job is a learning experience for me. So I'm not an expert, I'm a learner. I'm an expert learner. We can put it as that.
Okay.
So when I'm talking to developers, when I'm talking to customers, I'm looking at what are the key information that are out there in research, in actually working and building applications, or things coming out from libraries and frameworks. And I'm learning how to use them to solve problems, mainly build AI applications and use those to solve problems. And I'm just talking about what I'm learning, like I did while I was in university. When I was in university, so I'm just doing the same exact thing. So the way I stay at the cutting edge is by being an expert learner.
That is a pretty incredible life lesson that, is, I think, lost on a lot of people. A lot of people are not lifelong learners and expert learners. I don't think I've ever heard anyone actually use that phrase before. I really like that a lot. How did you become that? Did you wake up one morning, get, hit in the head, or like in, Back to the Future's trip and, see the flux capacitor and just know you had to be an expert learner?
It is fundamental. And I would like to make my story sound as cool. And I would like to tell you a cool story about how I started programming at the age of 8 years old and I was a genius and everything clicked. But the truth is, after taking computing on the whim of someone's decision, I was really bad at it. I was terrible. I was failing the topic. So I remember having to beg one of my teachers to let me on the course so I can carry on the next year. And how did I become an expert learner? And the short answer is because I had to, as in failure was not really an option for me. But I had a tough time getting to grips with understanding computing and just learning in general. It wasn't just computing as a topic, just learning. I was very distracted and I'd never paid attention in class. But and this is what really made me want to focus a lot on the computing and tech. I saw a blank web page, like a blank HTML web page, as a canvas, and I could build anything with code to solve any problem. And when I realized that I'm actually a modern day artist, right? The internet is my canvas, and whatever I think I can build with code, it became so much fun just doing the things that I do. But learning became fun. So I was learning so I could have fun. And that's how I became, I guess, good computing.
Let's go back to AI for a bit here. The whole idea of AI, and you're right, it is moving at quite the speed. So most of the conversations, at least most of the mainstream conversation, is around generative AI and, the whole idea of using AI in a chat kind of scenario. How does it continue to solve business problems if it gets, sort of pigeonholed into this, generative kind of view of the world?
Okay, how does AI continue to solve business problem if we just keep classifying it as generative?
Mm-hmm.
Is okay. Um, the promise of AI is, I guess, freedom for humans from doing manual labor. So, and automation. That is a promise of AI, right? Automation. And rather, generative is just the manifestation of these models we're seeing, right? But the key thing we have to start thinking about, or people should be thinking about, is automation. These things are not just generative models, they are world engines, right? In those parameters of a neural network, of a transformer neural network, are tons and millions of knowledge, of human knowledge. And what you can do is essentially begin to begin to get them to solve and think and reason about task and how to solve task. And then you start to realize that what you have, right, in these models are essentially systems that can help orchestrate other systems. They can actually invoke other systems. They can call other systems to execute. Now you're starting to go into or step away from generation and go into automation. You start to think about agents, right? You start to think about AI agents. Because when I'm a very simple person, as you could probably tell. When I think about AI agents, I think about the mnemonic BAP, and that stands for becoming a person. Or if you think the boundaries between artificial intelligence and biological intelligence should be very solid, you could change the becoming a person to becoming a professional. So if you think of AI agents as entities that are becoming a professional, then you start to understand the capabilities and the wonderful things that they can do. They can essentially begin to augment you in different work, in different things that you're doing in your manual processes. So over at MongoDB, what the team here are doing is we're building AI agents. We're exploring the capabilities of building these agentic systems and the problems that they can solve. Although we are a database company, agents need memory. And just like humans need memory, agents need memory. If you just think about becoming a person, it becomes very obvious. You're like, wow, yeah, that's true. So MongoDB is essentially the memory provider for AI agents. And we enable agents to store interaction and recall from past experiences, which allows this AI agents to function very well and predictable in a predictable manner within your work environment. There's so much more we can talk about this. The space is still developing. As I said, I'm not at the cutting edge. I'm just an expert learner.
You may not be the cutting edge, but you're just, if nothing else, you're just slightly behind that cutting edge. So I think you undersell yourself a bit. As we wrestle with automation and think about, and again, the idea of becoming a person or becoming a professional, it's sort of hard for me to separate those two. Hopefully, you're a professional person, kind of. I don't know, but if we go down that path today, we actually have people doing those things. What do we do with those people?
I guess it gets a bit philosophical, but one thing is, I'll start with the way human history is unfolded. There has been different revolutions, agricultural, the industrial revolutions, where there have been worry that the emerging technology will replace the workforce. But what we find is quite the opposite, is the new type of work starts to get defined. And this worry is something that a lot of people had hundreds of years ago in different cycles of revolutions. And we're just in one, as in we're in the beginning of one where we're thinking, wow, these AI tools are actually quite good. They can write a Google Doc, they can write a LinkedIn post better than I can. It's only a matter of time before they take my job. But you have to understand that, or I at least have faith in the fact that new type of work will emerge. And the whole purpose of being human is not to work, right? Is not to be at your desk doing a job you don't like, right?
I think arguably, people like Cicero back in ancient times would argue that the core of a human is actually work, and that all the rest of that is perhaps window dressing. I don't know. It gets into a discussion of philosophy. So
Yeah.
hopefully, and I'm not.
Let me double click.
Yeah.
Let me double click into that actually. So I think, again, let me tell you something interesting, right? I almost took philosophy when I was in school, right? And I remember sitting in the class, and I can't remember what philosopher said this, but I think it was Immanuel Kant. I can't remember what it was, but there was just something that was said that just put me off. And I was like, I think he said, "What's the meaning of life?" And I think the meaning of life is finding happiness or something along those lines. But something put me off. But needless to say, I never took it. I think people might be conflating work with purpose because work gives people a reason to wake up and it gives them a sense of purpose. But I don't think work and purpose are the same thing. I don't think that's what it means to be. I don't think work is what it means to be humans. I think humans need a purpose, and most people find that purpose in the work that they do.
I think that's fair. And that's, I know what I will be thinking about when I wake up at 2 this morning. And, one of those, oh my God, I got to think about this kind of thing moments. All of what we do, I would suggest, probably does impact on things like ethics and philosophy, especially if we're trying to change the world, even just a little bit. If we're down, if agents are the next big thing, if you were in a typical company today, moving forward, normal IT department, how would you start to try to think about leveraging, whether it's, old school generative, that was sort of fun actually to say, and or agents in your business? How would you start to think about that?
Have I mentioned that I'm a very simple person? So the way I generally tell people to think about that is just you don't need to change your mindset or your approach to thinking about agents at all. Because if you think about what I said earlier, agents are just trying to become a person, and you're already a person, so you're already one step ahead of AI agents. So how do you start thinking about agents if you're a professional today within a company? Start looking at your workflow of the work you do on a day-to-day basis. So let's take the workflow of you, Tom, essentially. You doing this podcast you have to do certain processes, right? You have to research on your guest, formulate some questions, send out some invites, a calendar invite for the time. Even before that, find the time for you and your guest to agree on, send the invite. When he gets towards get some approval on the questions, then you go through all of this process. And what you can actually do with AI agents is each of those process could become a task for the agent to execute. And if you just create like a workflow, like an actual workflow of your existing process, and take that to someone that maybe classifies themselves as an AI engineer or an AI stack engineer or wherever it might be, the key thing is they understand this agentic system. They will be able to point out how they can automate certain parts of your process. And they will say, "Hey, Tom, this part where you're formulating a question, I can create an agent that as soon as you give it the LinkedIn profile of the guest, it will give you a list of 10 questions based on the LinkedIn profile of the guest." Wouldn't that be nice? I can
Yeah.
build it.
That would be helpful. Okay, so that's the way people ought to start thinking about it. If they had to sell that in an organization, so this is the way to go, the next big thing. How do they sell that in an organization?
Well, so MongoDB is behind a lot of organizations building AI applications, and some of them are building agentic applications, agentic systems. Not all of them, some of them are. And one thing that we help is we enable these folks to build the best system for their customers. But when you come outside of MongoDB, and I'm speaking as a consumer, what I see people actually marketing this AI product as to professionals is they use a keyword, augment, right? This tool
It's
is going to
nice and soft word. Yeah, I like that.
exactly. You don't feel threatened by
No.
something that's going to augment you. But really, in a few years, I have this joke, and please don't take me too seriously. But anytime I see a job title next to the word augment, I think to myself, in 3 years, that's going to be replaced. That augment is going to be replaced. But again, I'm just joking. It's a fun joke I like to make. But generally, how companies are selling this AI products or this promise is essentially speaking to people that these tools we augment their their processes and make them more productive. And we have this augmentation, this term augmentation within machine learning. So there's a process within machine learning when you don't have enough data to train your models. One process of simulating essentially variety or diversity with your data is to augment the data. It's called data augmentation. So generally, augmentation allows us to make this machine learning become more performant. And you can think about that, I guess, in the same way for a human. Use this AI product to augment your capabilities to make you more productive. And MongoDB helps these AI products developers or customers build a robust, scalable infrastructure for the AI applications.
Richmond, this has been really incredible. And I looked down a few seconds ago and went, oh my, we're chewing up the distance in terms of time. We could go on for a long time, and I'd like to, but I think it's starting time to sort of wrap this. If you woke up tomorrow morning and someone handed you a magic wand and with 2 wishes preloaded and your caffeinated beverage of choice, so that you jump out of bed.
How did you know?
Yeah, well, there you go. What would those 2 wishes be as they apply in the machine learning world?
That is an interesting question. First wish would be to be able to just intensely focus. That'll be my first wish. In relation to machine learning, I have the attention span of a goldfish. But sometimes there's so much information, and sometimes you just have to sit down and just do the real work, go through notes and write down stuff and read research papers, code. And those can be 4 hours and 6 hours, and sometimes things don't go well. But the one thing that really helps is when you have focus. That's a character you can't give to an AI model. That's one of the character skills, focus. The second wish, wow, this is a tough question, Tom. So the second wish in relation to machine learning will be to have foresight 20 years into the future. So I'll be better at predicting AI than most people are, because some people can't predict AI further than 6 months. Well, I say some people, most people. So if I have the ability to just see where things are going in at least 20 years, then
well, then you could buy more of that stock that's going to be really good in 20 years.
I could have bought more MongoDB stocks when I was at university.
Why can't it just, before we really do start to wrap up, why can't we teach AI to focus?
Why can't we teach AI to focus? Well, we are. And one of the key breakthroughs that sort of sparked this era of generative AI is the attention mechanism, right? It's even in the name, attention mechanism. It's, I'm going to butcher it, but it's a process where if you have a sentence, essentially every word in that sentence, the relation of it to other words in that sentence, each word in the sentence, the relation of it to other words in that sentence is calculated, which essentially gives an understanding of how important that word is to the sentence itself. And this mechanism, I've oversimplified it. It's called the attention mechanism. And it allows, simply speaking, these models to begin to focus on key areas within any large corpus of text. So that's how it started. So I guess the same wish for focus is that I guess AI are beating me on that. But it's the attention mechanism is what sparked all of this in the transformer architecture.
Is there no way we can augment ourselves such that we pick up that focus from an AI?
Well, when I become friends with Elon Musk, I'll be the first to maybe mail you a Neuralink to see that is the one augmentation I guess we can have.
Again, Richmond, this has been absolutely fantastic. If people would like to continue the conversation, if they'd like to learn more about you, MongoDB, the rest of it, how would they go about doing that?
So there's going to be links in the show notes that talk about the things that we discussed today. So AI agents, how to build them. For those of you who are curious, there'll be some code. And if you want to reach me personally, I'm active on LinkedIn. I try to be active on Twitter, but I'm not funny enough. Yeah, LinkedIn and Twitter are good places, but with MongoDB resource in the show notes, they would get you started in just thinking and playing with these agents.
Fantastic. At this point, I open up the platform for you to promote anything that you like. The podcast has been around, by the time this runs, 18 and a half years. All the episodes are out there. So selling your car on eBay, probably not the thing to do unless you want phone calls 18 years later. But the platform's yours.
Well, I'd like to thank you for having me, and thank you for making me spend the longest time I've ever spent answering a question. That was some interesting questions. This has been a good conversation. I hope your guest and the listeners took some value out of it. There is nothing I'd like to shout out, but just check out the links in the show notes and reach out to me if you have some interesting things you want to talk about. Maybe not philosophy.
Oh, I don't know. You were pretty good at that. And, I'm going to have to go off and find my Kant again. I don't know. I've been reading Stoic philosophy recently. It actually makes a lot of sense in terms of, the software development world, I think. But Richmond Alake, again, thank you very much for spending time on a Friday evening with the Software Process and Measurement Cast listeners.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Master work intake. Pretty darn simple, but really, every time you look at teams that are in trouble, this is one of those things that is cropping up all the time. Jeremy Willets and I wrote a book called Mastering Work Intake, and it hit the bookstore back in earlier this year. We've also been doing cohort-based workshops to help expose and solve this dirty little secret. 2 questions we've gotten when we run these things are, what's a cohort-based workshop? That's a lot of words. So we've come up with a mechanism to help you understand what's a cohort-based workshop and what's in it for you. Join us on September 11th at 11 a.m. We're going to do an open house to focus on our cohort-based workshop. This is not just a sales call. Obviously, we'd love you to join, but we're going to provide a lot of value in terms of what it'll do for you and how to get there. Link in the show notes. In Reread Saturday News, Chapter 1 of How to Be a Stoic by Massimo Pigalucci establishes that the central question of all cultures and philosophies is how to live. Let's begin by dispelling the notion that Stoicism eschews emotion and feeling. Rather, is the ancient philosophy based on importance of wisdom, character, and balance. The author states Stoicism is an approach to living in which the moral character is the only true worthy thing to cultivate. While I believe Spock, Star Trek, by the way, has a high moral character. If you're expecting How to Be a Stoic to teach you to be a Vulcan, you will be disappointed. If nothing else, Stoics have a wry sense of humor. Forewarned is forearmed. Looking forward to having you buy a copy and read along with me. In the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 826, we will explore whether urgency has more power in prioritization in collaborative events. Importance is supposed to trump urgency, but when you involve many voices, things are murkier. We'll also have a visit from Case Kostecki, who will bring her You Are Not Alone column to the Software Process and Measurement Cast. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?